What's up, guys? We're here to another event review. This event review is going to be on Klutch Kickers Round 1, the 100K series. I personally absolutely love the event. It was a super sick event. Probably one of the best competition events I've seen outside of FD as like a competitive drifting level wise. And it's definitely something that was just sick to see. Um, but there's always things that they can improve on. So we're going to go into that. And I got special guest Dustin Miles here, FD Pro 2 driver, who wasn't at the event. So he's going to have a couple questions, I'm sure, about it that we're going to hopefully help him answer. And then we have Reese, who was there helping out some drivers down there at the actual event. But you've been around for a long time in drifting, and I'm kind of curious to see just how you thought the event went personally, um, and just kind of, you know, show us your knowledge of the drifting world, and possibly help some drivers out that are going to this event in particular, because it is going to happen another 4 times this year, and it's going to be pretty nuts. I can only assume going down the road. So, initial thoughts for you, Reese, on this event first, to get it started off.
Um, so I think a lot of people know that the Northeast has definitely had issues with competitions such as this, kind of manifesting, and then there's false promises and stuff like that. I think the overall thought, and I'm sure, Dustin, who I'm sure in the back of his mind said, hey, maybe I should go to this, because I'm sure that happened to a lot of drivers. But I think what made every driver hesitate was the history that competitions like this have, where maybe somebody doesn't get paid. And I know it's like, why we have to talk about the money, but when you got to travel that far, like this isn't Japan. We have to travel many hours, maybe not Dustin himself to get to this event, but I mean, I went with Brian Wadman and I was in that semi truck with him for 24 hours. You know what I mean? So like maybe for me it wasn't a long haul, but I can just imagine, the logistics, how much money was spent and stuff like that. So it was really refreshing, first of all, to see that people did get paid. That they were very honest about that. The event was ran pretty well, in my opinion, for their first time. They had Greg, they had Will, and they had Pat as judges. You know what I mean? All people that are very well versed in this. They had Nick Swan over there overseeing things as well, too. So they had a lot of people that understood what this should look like and help make this happen. And so I definitely enjoy that. I think what I enjoyed the most out of it, though, is that, in my opinion, high horsepower cars didn't mean jack shit at this event. It was all about, timing your transitions and having the right setup for the car. So it was really interesting to see the spectators that were there to witness, the professional drivers go through this drastic learning curve. And I think it's going to be interesting from this point forward how many other people are going to be there to witness that type of adjustment happen to some of these drivers, because there were some upsets at this competition. And it was just really interesting to see how that all kind of came forward. I'm definitely going to go to as many rounds as I can. I'm definitely going to round 2. And I just think it was good. It was very well done. I hope it keeps on going. I think there are some things we could probably change that I'm sure we'll touch on,
Yeah, I mean, my first thoughts arriving on the track, I couldn't believe how small it was at first, and I was like, how are they? So, where I'm from in the Midwest, you either drive on circle tracks, which are huge, or you drive on road courses, which are huge. So we don't,
Right.
or you drive in like a skid pad, but that's a little different. But like for the most part, we're all driving third, fourth gear corners for the most part. Maybe you get to a second gear corner. So I'm not outside of like U.S. Air. There's not another course like this where I'm from. So we don't. And then obviously filming FD, you don't get anything like this. So it is a
No.
very, very unique course and just how it is and how it's set up to where, like you said earlier, horsepower didn't mean anything at this track. And it was interesting to actually watch a lot of guys actually struggle just trying to
Yeah.
deal with the horsepower and dealing with car setup and stuff. Um, and it really is like, it was like the ultimate equalizer track that I've seen. One of the best equalizing tracks I've seen in competition drifting, at least, just
Now,
because of that fact.
I think it was an equalizer because I think it's an equalizer now. Okay, I don't think it's going to be an equalizer as more if more events like this happen and if more layouts like this are given to the drivers. Because as with anything, the more times event like these like this happens, with these layouts happen, drivers' knowledge and education is going to grow. To me, it wasn't so much. Yeah, it was interesting to see people that were struggling, but it was very interesting to see the people who you assumed had this knowledge to make the adjustments to the race to the track that they were drifting, but they didn't have the knowledge. So then they were left with a car that could do anything, but if they didn't have the knowledge to apply it to that layout, they were left dead in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And it really kind of showed you like who really had it up here and who didn't. For the people that were reading between the lines, some people didn't care, but when you're in this for a while, and I'm sure like the judges and other drivers that were there and other people that were watching that have been doing this for a while, found it very interesting that there were some people that were struggling, not so much with the driving aspect, but they were struggling with driving, but because there was lack of knowledge and lack of understanding of what they needed to do in this layout to make their car have the best chance to do good at this layout. There was going to be some advantages for having high horsepower. There's going to be disadvantages and vice versa with the cars. But it was really interesting to see that not every driver understood that. I think over time, more drivers will have that, and you'll start seeing drivers jump in and out, adjusting things, and there's going to be even more closer battles. But
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be a difference between, somebody drifting Irwindale and then somebody drifting this track here. What I do think should happen is I think the drivers that probably would have done the best at this event would have been drivers that came from final bout. Not
Mm-hmm.
because of their style or anything. I think that would have been a plus. But I think those guys are more adapted to what we saw at that competition than maybe 60% of the drivers that showed up.
Because
So
it's not your normal pro-am track.
Yeah, it's not your normal pro-am track. Where I think if more of the drivers, which there is good drivers from Final Bout, you know what I mean? Like a lot of good drivers. And since they're more adapted, I think they would have done better in this setting, and you would have seen something very different happen. And it could have shit. Just a man, think about it. One of those dudes comes and wins that event with those people in it. To me, that shakes things up a little bit. That kind of throws question marks, right, Dustin? Wouldn't you be like, damn, like, who won? And it's like it changes the perspective of a lot of things. And I think that wave is coming, and when it crashes, it's going to open the minds up to a lot of people. So it's not there yet, and there's a lot of obstacles that could possibly not allow that to happen. But hey, if all the stars align up and certain people do show up and certain people get lined up and grid up next to another, like, yeah, I think that was the best part about it. Like, I think in this year, because allegedly these events are guaranteed to happen, you're going to see battles that you typically wouldn't get to see anywhere else. And I think that's where the magic is at in this, more than anything else. For me, for somebody who enjoys drifting like this, you know what I mean?
Right. We saw FD level cars going up against stock LS, stock 350s East, and they were driving together, and that was the cool thing, is like they were both equally, for the most part, matched,
Right.
and it was really cool to see. We, like you said, we saw some pretty cool upsets, and it was, I'm gonna say this and repeat this stat over and over again. There were 4 Pro 1 drivers there, and only one made in the top 5, and that just kind of tells you the difference. It seems like whoever has a good day is going to have the good day. It's not obviously you have the driver set up, but once you get into that top 32, even top 16, it's whoever's got the better day at that point, and that's what it seems like it's kind of coming down to. And Honordale won, but to be honest, he could have been knocked out in top 32 very easily. That was a pretty close battle, in my opinion. And then top 16 was another close one for him. But because both of those went one more time, And I guess that kind of brings me into the next question of, what do you think about their new one-time, one run setup? Which I thought I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it's my personal favorite, but it's an interesting concept. And at first, I thought it was kind of it put a lot of the pressure on the judges, but I think you might have changed my mind on this. So kind of explain why it's not necessarily on the judges per
So,
se.
so I think everybody's going to have a different perspective on. I don't want to say the new rule. I don't think this is going to change competition drifting. I just think for this event, this is the way they're doing it. So
You
it's
want
like
to quick
any other.
explain? You also
Yeah, yeah.
you want to
I'll
explain what
explain.
it is?
It's
Cool.
so the I call it the sudden death one more time, and I think the reason it's good, good or not good, but in this situation, I'm like, all right, this is what you got to deal with. These are the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say me and you, or let's say me and Dustin are drifting. Dustin qualifies higher than me, and I get matched up with Dustin. Now the pressure's on me because I have to make sure that if I'm going to go against Dustin, I have to make sure that I don't let this go to a one more battle. I have to make sure I do what I need to do, because if it goes to a one more battle, because Dustin qualified higher, he gets the choice on whether I'm going to chase or follow on the one more time sudden death. So it's not like me and you are going to go again twice, Dustin. Like, if you say, nah, man, it goes one more time, I'm going to follow you. That's it. I get that one run to try to chase away from you. And if you glue it to my door and make it look better, then you win. So it puts pressure on the driver, in my opinion, from the beginning, from qualifying. It puts all that pressure on the drivers like, yo, I got to qualify high. Because if I get to a battle, I don't want to be the one that's potentially going to have the disadvantage because I didn't qualify high enough. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's putting pressure on the judges. I think it's putting pressure on the drivers to qualify good, to qualify the highest. You know what I mean? So they're going to push it. Yeah, they're going to go for safe runs, but those safer runs are going to become higher. And then on the second run, they're going to want to push it even higher, because if everybody starts to get around the same points, they're going to start fighting to see who can get to the higher bracket. So this way they're not the ones that are going to have the disadvantage. And it saves you a lot of time as well too. You know what I mean? So I'm not necessarily, it's a better way of doing things. All I'm saying, it's a different way. It's their way. And I think, honestly, if you're coming to this event for $10,000, I'm looking at it that means you're telling everybody that you think you're good. So if you're that good, then go do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the rule, bro. Like, you don't have to come play at this game. But, like, if that's the rule and you want to get that money, then play by the rules and start figuring out what your strategy is going to be before you decide to pay however $100 to register. You know what I mean? Like, that's my take on it. You know what I mean? I think it's putting pressure on the drivers to drive better, so they qualify higher, so they don't get into the disadvantage section of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a very interesting rule.
I feel like it gives you more incentive to leave it all on the track in your first battle, because if you go, you're going to, if you go to one more time, it's only one more run. You don't get a whole other set of battles. Whereas, in FP, you go one more time and you're like, all right, I got another shot at this. You're like, it's over with pretty much when you go to one more time, especially if you didn't qualify well enough. Because I just feel like no matter how good of a lead job you do in the front, we all know this is a big saying, to have a good lead or to have a good chase, you got to have a good lead. So if you do your job and you lead well and you get chased well, you're kind of out, because it's always the advantage to the chase driver who sticks on your door, no matter, if y'all both, like if the lead car runs a 100-point run and the chase car runs a 90, but he's on your door, the chase car's still going to win because it was more exciting. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So exactly, and I think the more experienced drivers that understood what this rule meant, they were the ones that understood, maybe kept their mouth shut and say, whatever, this is just what we got to do. You know what I mean? And then there was strategy. The more and more I reviewed the video of the comp that my buddy posted up and you posted up, Nate, of the whole competition, and the more and more I look at it, as Hanadale definitely played a strategy. I don't think he played dirty or anything like that at all. People say maybe his car was a little bit too much for the track. That may be true, but he banked on taking the wide line and banked that nobody would figure out how to slow their car enough so they wouldn't plow into him and come out of drift. There was a lot of guys that were driving with him that were struggling with that, and I think a lot of the cars were gripped up too much. So this way, any imperfection or anytime they hesitated while in drift, their cars would show that, and that's what they were getting dinged with. So I think Hanadel may have just kind of used that. I don't know for sure. He didn't tell me that or anything, so I don't want to say something that's not true. This is just from what I'm thinking, from what I saw. He kind of looked at it and said, you know what? I'm just going to hang it out. I'm going to pour on the angle and I'm going to get through the track. Yeah, I'm going to go slower, but if these dudes don't figure out what they need to do to their car so they can stay with me, then it's on them. And I think that strategy is what ultimately led him to, winning the event. Although I think Taylor Ray put an amazing fight, in my opinion, as well too. Really enjoyed it. Maybe it could have gone either way. I don't know. I just enjoyed the event. Definitely that battle was fun.
Absolutely. It was, and it's not just a big comp event though either. Though you got to think about it. Everyone had unless you broke during like testing and stuff. Everyone got, a good like 15, 20 laps in too.
Right.
In the track for just practice alone. And then if you made it into top 32, you had a whole nother morning of practice, So the guys that, at least made it top 32 got a ton of driving in too. So it's
Right.
not like an FD round where you drive 6 practice laps and 2 qualifying laps and that might be your whole weekend, So that was something really kind of cool. You would think they still had like 45, 50 drivers there, and you would think it would take forever, but the way that the course is set up, they're able to run cars through there really quickly, and he's able to run like 3 or 4 sets of tandems on the track at the same time, and it really, like you said, he really is Swan's really able to get through a bunch of cars really fast. So practice time is really wasn't an issue here unless you broke.
Yeah. And it's also, I also say, like, I think the reason it went so smooth and quickly is because I'm definitely give credit where it's due. I think the organizers did a good job. Swan did a good job. Everybody that was there did a good job. But the talent that showed up to the track, these guys weren't scrubs. Like, these guys weren't bad drivers. You know what I mean? Yeah, people were struggling and figure stuff out, but these guys, by all means, weren't scrubs. Like, these guys knew the deal. Even the 17-year-old who's like, this is his first big comp event, he wasn't a scrub either. He may have not had the experience as everybody else, but all of these guys knew what they were doing, were decent drivers, were good drivers, and I think that's what led to not too many spin outs. And if there was a spin out, it was handled really quickly. Yeah, there were some places where there was a couple hiccups, but I think because the level of driving was still pretty high, it allowed for things to move very smoothly. And I think that parade lap that they did for all the people that got a bye run, where they just kind of let everybody go on a little parade lap real quick and drift, was really good. It saved a lot of time and it allowed everybody to focus on the battles, which is, I think, what everybody really ultimately wanted, and opened up the window for practice.
Exactly. Yeah. That was a genius move, and there was a couple other things that were they're really well done, and there were some times and spots that weren't as smooth as it could have been. But, like, for example, like when they were trying to get the scores out and the brackets out to people in between stuff, it took a little bit. But even that, I feel like it was their first event, so I'm sure they're going to figure out a little bit more efficient way to do that kind of stuff. One thing I do think, and a lot of organizations do this, and I haven't really understood why. FD is really good at this, but during qualifying, they didn't tell you the scores, and I personally would love to hear the scores just so as a spectator you know what's going on, who's doing well, but I'm sure as a driver's aspect too, you would really want to know at least what your score was, where you are in relative to like the rest of the field. I think that would just be really helpful in qualifying as well.
I agree with you. I do, and I think we spoke briefly about how it could be maybe said over the loudspeaker and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then after thinking about it, I'm conflicted.
Okay.
Because as much as I want to know, let's say if you don't know what your score is, aren't you inclined to still keep on pushing it just a little bit harder again?
Yeah.
So, like, part of me is like about it, but then at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I think maybe that's too much of a blind thing. So I think maybe just announcing it over the speaker would be good. But if they decided not to and said, well, we're not doing it because it kind of pushes the drivers to kind of like, all right, well, I can't stop. Like, I don't really know what I got, but, but at the same time, I think you're right. People want to know just for peace of mind. So I agree with you.
Well, so hear me out. Here's the reason I love well, first of all, qualifying's boring to begin with. We can
Yeah.
all agree on that.
Yeah.
And it's hard and it's boring for spectators for the most part. But when you add scoring to it, it kind of creates like this battle, per se, an indirect battle between other drivers and stuff, and who's going to do the best scoring wise and stuff like that. So from a spectating standpoint, I think having scores when you're qualifying and announcing them and having like a somewhat easy way to figure out who's doing what in what position would go a lot on a spectator side of things.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're right. If they had a point system, I think it does turn into like a little bit of a battle. Maybe even put like maybe like $1,000 up for grabs for first qualifier or something like that. Because then like now the crowd's into it. Like, oh, this dude gets the money now. You know what I mean? So it's like I think there's a lot of things that can be done. I think what's good is that there's room for growth.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're very open minded to what needs to be done, and I think everything that we may touch on in this conversation, either they talked about or they plan on making better. Because if we're thinking about this, I can only assume Swan, Pat, Will, and Greg are all thinking about it as well too. Because I just feel like, nowadays most drifters with that experience kind of have that mindset.
Exactly. And it was something that was really useful at this track was they had a nice like PA system, so they were able to announce a lot of stuff. Um, and it's I think it was their first event again. I assume the guy they gave the mic to was just they were just like, hey, here's the mic kind of thing. So he was kind of like at points he kind of struggled to like tell or get some information out, or like sometimes we couldn't tell who won some battles and stuff like. And I think that'll be all ironed out. But I think just being more defined, being like, hey, this guy won this battle over the PA system or something. And then everyone cheers and whatnot, and so that and just being more in tune, and then possibly giving the mic to one of the judges for explaining why they chose something. I think, and FD does this, and I really do like it, and I think it helps a lot with not only giving a reason why a certain decision went a certain way, but also educating people.
Right,
Um,
right.
so I think I think that would be a really helpful way to just keep people engaged and also give explanations and hopefully make people less angry or less because I mean, if for some reason you think you should have won and there's no explanation, well, and I think we saw like I think 2 protests during the event.
Right.
Um, so maybe some of that might iron out some of that, frustration as well. So
And I definitely think like, so I don't know who was on the microphone, and I thought about this as well too. Nothing. I can't take anything away. I'm assuming that's the dude's job. Like that's what he was doing.
Mhm.
But again, I don't want this dude to lose his job for announcing. But maybe get somebody to be an announcer that really understands everybody that's there, understands the magnitude of what that event is. Because yeah, the viewers and the spectators that are listening to a voice, but if the drifters that are watching the competitions listen to somebody that they know very well, let's say Miles was the announcer. People know Miles. People know him very well. Another FD driver is on the microphone talking, who has the knowledge, who understands this a little bit more. Then you're talking to a group of drivers, not just spectators that don't know about drifting, but then you also have somebody who has the knowledge to talk to the drifters that do know about it. And then you won't get like those people like, this dude doesn't know what he's talking about type of thing. I'm not saying that happened this round.
Mhm.
Again, I don't want this dude to lose his job or anything like that, but I'm sure a lot other dudes that drive would appreciate hearing somebody on the microphone if they either recognized him or they said, yo, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's just my 2 cents on it. Again, I don't want this dude to lose his job. He's going to be like,
Right.
great, like people aren't going to hire me.
Well,
but,
I mean, it to me it seemed like it was like a last minute thing. Like, hey, here's the microphone, and here's like when he was reading off the names, all he had was that list of like a guy's first name and last letter, so he couldn't even like say the guy's full name. So like if they were just a little bit more prepared and like maybe they give him the guy with a list of like full names, maybe where the guy's from, maybe what car they drive, so he can like say a couple things about the driver when they like come out or something.
Yeah.
So just being a little bit more prepared on that end, would go, I think, a long way, just in the presentation of the event. But,
Right. Whereas if you had somebody that had the knowledge, he would have known half of the staff already. He would have known half of the drivers already. He would have been like, well, this is Troy, this is Marin, this is this, and so he only has to focus about the other 50% that showed up. So just little things like that I think could possibly change things around a little bit and make it a little bit more appealing to the ear, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and that's the thing, and you made some interesting comments to me at the actual event on how this and just on how attractive this event can possibly be. But the biggest thing people are wondering is how long is it going to last? And like you mentioned earlier, the biggest thing is whether or not like people have had bad taste in their mouth before from events not paying. The big thing is this event did pay the winners, and like immediately afterwards, so that's a good first step. But what was kind of some of the other stuff that you like people have concerns about? And stuff like that.
So like, I understand that a lot of people are hype about this event and they're excited for the $10,000 and they're excited that there's going to be a series like this. And I want to believe these guys to the moon that they're going to be here for 5-10 years. You know what I mean? But the honest and the reality is the honest truth and the reality is that yes, guaranteed that this event's going to be here five rounds this year. But I'm not saying nobody's going to take this series seriously. I'm just saying because drivers like Dustin or other people at his caliber that you want to come to these events, they can't build a career or add that to their career if they're not like FD's not going anywhere. Like he knows 5 years from now, FD's still going to be there. He can build a career off of that. You can't build a career off of Klutch Kickers yet. Because as much as people want to promise us the moon and back, we've been promised the moon and back and we've been left alone. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, the first thing is, are you paying us? And then the next thing, because we're drifters, we're like, okay, cool, do it again. And then after they do 5 years, they're like, all right, cool, are you going to come back next year? So even if they do it 2 years straight, there's still going to be people that are skeptical because that's just the nature of who we are and how drifters are because the history that we've dealt with. So I don't know. I mean, honestly, right now, I think the mentality and, I'm sure the organizers may not like it the way it's going to sound, but like right now it's like, yo, go get your money. If the money's there, go compete, go get your money. Yeah, you want to sit here and say you're going to be loyal to this series, but the fact of the matter is there is no contract. There is nothing stating that they are going to be here for 5 years. I'm sure they have all the intention of doing that, and I really hope they do because it's going to change things, I think, a lot. But history has a crazy way of showing its ugly face all the time, so most drifters are going to look at this series and say, okay, cool, let's see how far you're going to go with this. I don't think that's bad. I think that's just drifters covering their ass because that's what you got to do. We've been treated like the red-headed stepchild for many years, and now they're all pretty much blowing us and having these commercials with drifting and everything. You got to read between the lines. You know what I mean? Like it's a business, but you got to read between the lines. So at the end of the day, Dustin here can make a living off of driving Formula Drift, but could he make a career off of, or excuse me, he can have a career off of Formula Drift, but can he make a career out of doing these 10,000K events? There's no guarantee that they're always going to be there. And I think that's going to be the next hurdle for something like that, which I think is very doable. I think they can definitely do it. It's just time will tell. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm sure Dustin, right? I mean, like, would you want to invest all your time into this without having a guarantee?
Yeah, I mean, you can't go out there and expect you're going to win every event or you're even going to do well or be able to finish every event. So aside from just the payouts, you can't go out there expecting or being able to do something strictly on just the payouts. Like Formula D, like no one really makes money off of going out there and winning the event. You make money off everything surrounding the event, and the partners that you can create, the partnerships you can create through the event, and I think when they're looking for places to grow, I feel like that's where they should invest and try and, emulate what FD's doing, and it's, getting all the media out there and getting and build the hype up around the event and not only the hype around the payouts. You got to get the hype out there. The payouts are going to give you the hype that are going to give you the drivers. and you're gonna get a crowd out of that too. But if you're not building the hype around the series as well, and all the media and getting a good live stream up and stuff like that, then that's where you're gonna hit a wall in how many spectators and how many people, how many eyes you're gonna get on your series. And
you bring up a really good point because Nate, me and you both went to the event. We had an amazing time. It was great. But if round 2, 3, 4, 5 have the same turnout as round 1, I don't think that's good for business. I don't know what their logistics are, but just in a perfect world that'd be enough. But I don't think that's enough. Like, you need all 64 spots to sell out. You need that place to fill up like it's a crazy event. You know what I mean? Like, if the same turnout that happened at Final Bout were to happen there, then yes, that series would probably continue and thrive because you're going to have the spectators, you're going to have the media, but there's a lot of other components that they're going to have to start getting. And kudos and clout approval. Let's face it, it's reality, man. It's just what it is. And those are the hurdles that now they're going to have to face. I think with the people they have helping them, they definitely have a good shot of making it happen. But it is what it is. It's like, again, at the end of the day, it's all time, and we have to wait and see how that's all going to play out at the end of the day.
Right. And it was interesting. Shooting that track is super fun. Like, it was a super rad track to shoot. They were really chill about media, just from experience and just shooting the track. I have a couple videos coming out, and they're gonna be sick. But I didn't know a lot of the media people, and a lot of the media people actually there were a lot of them were like new or first time shooters. So like there wasn't a whole lot of high level media there, either. Just from that was just the reality of it. So like you were saying, getting I guess building that base is going to do a lot for that series as well, just getting more eyes on it and stuff. And that's kind of, and that'll take time, obviously. But yeah, Dustin, you make a good point on just like drivers don't just go down there for the payouts. They, you want to go down there for all of the sponsors that FD's got and stuff like that, and get all those eyes as well. So I think they would have a long ways to really be super successful. But I think I really do like the idea, and I really do think that this track is a really good way to do it. Really great, just overall competition track. So I'm personally super excited about it, just from the level of drivers. And what I think is interesting is they just didn't throw in an FD license because it seems like what everyone else does. So it's literally strictly for just the drivers, and that was kind of their whole motto. This was made for the drivers, for anyone to come out and shred, and and literally pretty much anything, and have a good time. So I think they did a really good job doing that.
At the grand scheme of things, like, you can call it for what it is. It is the one place right now that you can go to and compete against another Pro 1, Pro 2 driver. Period. And it just so happens to be for cash. I mean, if you can do it at ND Drift 2 over in North Dakota or somewhere out there, I know they're doing that as well too. But those kind of events are the only places where you can do that, and people want to see that. People want to see a regular dude. First of all, America loves underdogs. You know what I mean? So as soon as you become pro and you go back to one of these events, now you got a target on your back. But like, the United States also likes drama, so it's all at the same time. Like, you like seeing that little, like, you like seeing that little battle, and I think that's healthy to see that. I don't think it takes away from any driver if you lose there. For example, we have Kevin Lawrence, respected driver, loses against a 17-year-old in a stock 350Z, and he's in his Enjuko R32 car. Now, the untrained person will look at that battle and be like, oh, dude, the fucking 17-year-old blew Kevin's doors out. Clearly he's the better drifter. Well, no, the kid, he just happened to pick the right line, and he did what he needed to do, and Kevin miscalculated, in my opinion, on the entry, which turned out to be his downfall. He handled it like a professional. It doesn't take anything away on how good Kevin Lawrence is. it just shows you that, like you guys said, on any given day, you slip up that much and somebody else will come and take your candy away. You know what I mean? And that's the magic about drifting, dude, that you can go into a competition or a series like this or a setting like this, and due to the circumstances, it doesn't matter what license you have. It just matters what you're going to do in those follow and chase battle at that event. And I think that's what attracted a lot of people, is that, like, when is that kid ever going to get a chance to drive against a Pro 1 driver like that ever again?
And the kid was stoked afterwards, too.
Yeah, he was stoked. He hugged his dad. He hugged his car. It was a freaking Kodak moment.
Oh, dude, I was stoked for that kid.
Dude, I mean, look, think about this. I'm stoked for the kid, but imagine how that kid walked into school the next day at high school. He probably walked all types of different, bro. Yeah, I mean, like, right, his friends were hyping him up and stuff. He's like, bro, you don't even know what I did this weekend. You know what I mean? And that type of stuff there is like, that's what you want to see. You know what I mean? That kid's never going to forget about that event. Again, doesn't take anything away from any pro driver there. It just shows you that those really cool moments, events like this can give birth to, and that's ultimately a really great thing about that all. You know what I mean? It's a good outcome of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you got a couple. So obviously you've been doing competition drifting a while, Dustin. So what's some kind of questions that you still have about the series, and maybe concerns, or like just from an outside looking in and kind of hearing about it?
I think the series is great. I hope it's something that catches on and spreads throughout the country, really, because it's something that is needed. Because, hold on, I gotta sneeze. Maybe I don't. I don't know. I think it's something like not a lot of people are doing, because it's like, I don't want to say they're trying to get into competition with Formula D, but at the end of the day, they kind of are, because they're not trying to set themselves up as a way to go to Formula D. So in that sense, I feel like, they're trying to compete with it. And I think that's good. I think more people need to do that, and more series need to try and do that, because, I mean, hey, it's America. Competition is what we all love the most. And we all, it's a free marketplace. So, I feel like everyone should try and do their best to do whatever. And I think it's doing something, I think it's doing something better for competitive drifting than Formula D is, because the track is more of an equalizer, so it's something that a normal person can see and say, dang, I want to go do that. Whereas FD is like, dang, I want to go do that, but it's going to cost me a whole bunch of money, and I'm going to have to build a car to this level to compete with the people at this level. But it's an equalizer to the point where you can say, oh, I want to go do this, and it's affordable, and you don't have to build a car that's super crazy, because we all saw the track as an equalizer in itself. And I think that's something that it's doing that's going to be, that this whole series will be great for us. I think it's going to get more people interested in doing competitive drifting. And I think that's great, because right now, I mean, right now it's getting better, but 3 years ago when I was doing Pro-Am, I mean, the last round that I showed up to, there was 4 drivers in Pro-Am. You know what I mean? In the Pro-Am that I did. Like, literally, if you weren't getting a license, you didn't even show up, And I feel like this kind of stuff is going to get people hyped on doing competitions and make it more feasible for more people to want to do competitive drifting. And so I think that's really great about it. I would love to get involved with it. I wasn't able to make it because of Drift Week and just money and stuff like that. And I might not be able to make it to the second round. I'm going to try my best to, if there's even spots left. I feel like the hype's getting there now to where it's going to sell out, Mm-hmm. And my only hope is going to be somebody's car breaking beforehand. But if not, I feel like, like I said, I would just really like to see them focus a little bit more on the whole media side of it. Like, they need to spend the money to get a good live stream going, Like
I was thinking the same thing.
Robert Goodwin's, Rob's live stream on his phone from the middle of the track, and that's a cool aspect of it. And I don't feel like I don't want to see that anymore, because I do. I like watching that. But if they could get some form of a live stream that will both get them eyes, I think it would also get them more spectators, because it would get more people watching it online, and then more people in the area would want to go be there, just because if it's feasible for you to get there, I feel like, or you can watch it online. Yeah, it's easier just to watch it online, but the whole environment of everything is better when you're there.
Mm-hmm.
But
and it's a great spectating track. I'll say that right now. There's really isn't like a bad seat in the house. It was a really, really sweet track to watch it at too.
Yeah, I think the only thing that they really need to work on to really make themselves grow leaps and bounds would be, getting a good live stream up.
Mm-hmm.
And, like Reese said, getting, an announcer that's going to tell and be more informed about everything. Like, I wasn't there. You couldn't really hear what Chris was saying over the live stream that we were on, all watching. But, I think it would be like, you need like the duo of you can't have one person up there trying to talk the whole time. I think you need a couple people announcing, and maybe even like a Lorette Nickel, where you got someone in the pits talking to the drivers and hearing what their side of the story and all that kind of stuff. And then like Nate said, someone in the judges booth hearing what the judges have to say, so that when you're watching something online, especially, you're not there to see it in person. You miss certain little things when you look away, or, lag or whatever happens. You understand, okay, this is why this was said, and this is why this happened because X, Y, Z. You know what I mean? Like, there was so many things where I would like forget what happened in the chase run, or I'd forget what happened in the lead run, and then I'd see a certain thing, and I'd be like, why did he win? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And we just need to get that explanation to kind of, when you're watching as a spectator, you're not taking down all the little notes of every little thing that happened, so you can quickly forget, oh, this person straightened up a little bit, or this person did this, when you see a big fault in another way, like that when Alec went against that Mustang and he messed up his transition and stuff. Like, I was like, whoa, this is really weird here. This is happening, but I completely can't remember what happened in the guy's chase run. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's not like I'm not like looking at it from the judge's perspective. You know what I mean? I'm not focusing on every single thing as much. So getting that little bit of, just talk would be good. And as far as the driver, like, I'm just excited on, the payouts really, and the layout and the track looks like super fun.
Yeah, it definitely was a lot of fun to just sit there and watch. I mean, like for me, the easiest way and the most rudimentary way that I could explain the difference between like what we deal with what you deal with at Irwindale or on these big tracks is that the time between transitions is really big in some of these bigger tracks. So the transition, although is always important, isn't really like the key component, because if you mess up the transition a little bit, you could catch up and then make an impact by staying close on the sweeper and on the decreasing radius turn. So you're making up for that small little error on the transition. Here, you mess up on one transition, a half a second later, another one's coming. And then a half a second later, another one's coming. Mm-hmm. And then like that final one, it's like, it's a weird one as well too. So when you multiply those transitions and you're off by a half second or even a fraction of a second, you get to really see the end turnout. And that's, I did a little breakdown on Instagram about it. And although I'm happy that a lot of people got something out of it, it just blew my mind how many people didn't understand what was going on. Didn't understand when they saw the run, how transitioning late, plays a huge role. And I told people, like, it's cool if the dude in front of you is running, if you're running the correct line, that's fine. But when you're tandeming, you got a moving clipping point in front of you, and you are continuously adapting while at the same mind in the back of your mind, keeping that line that you need in order to win. So there's a lot of advanced stuff going on. Although this track was very small, it amplified the technical part to the point where it was advanced status. And I think that's what was so cool about it. Again, horsepower didn't play a role. You had to kind of understand the game a little bit more, and you had to say, all right, I've seen this guy drive, and I have to anticipate when I'm going to dive in and hope it doesn't choke me up, which is where I think having a spotter for this event was crucial, because there really wasn't a lot of time for you to talk to the driver that was there. So you really need to give the information to your driver as it was coming. But even with Wadman, you can see you can give all the information you want. If your driver or you as a driver don't understand the importance of those transitions, all the advice in the world isn't going to help you sometimes. You know what I mean? It really just comes down to you're the one driving. You know what I mean? You have to kind of see these things that are happening in front of you. You know, the way the guy in the Collins car was driving was different from the way Alec Honadale was driving, and you as a driver have to adapt to that. And the way you drive against one guy may be different the way you drive against the other guy, and the techniques that you use to stay close, be it a left foot brake or whatever it is, it's going to vary. And I think that's where the craft of drifting is starting to come into play in this competition. And not that the bigger tracks isn't fun, it's just different, and this is just another version of it. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's all plays a role. It's just two different styles of martial arts. That's all it is. You know what I mean? It's whatever style you decide to come to the park with.
Exactly. I think it's still been needed too.
Yeah, it just broadens and I'm sure people that drive here and understand these transitions and understand that timing, when they get to go to a bigger track, you have more time to think now. You know what I'm saying? You're going a lot faster. So, like, the fear is definitely up there, but I'm assuming with time you get bigger and you lose those training wheels of fear, and then you start, like, really throwing it in there, and your confidence builds up. And I think it's just a good training tool, definitely, to do these events. You know what I mean? Because it keeps you sharp. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's interesting because it's a little bit longer than a normal FD track, I think, would be. It's got a couple more corners than a normal FD track. There's I think there's 4 transitions, so there's a lot of places to mess up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's not easy ways. There's not obvious ways to just catch back up either. Another side note. This guy, I guess, is kind of a positive to the track. A lot of guys didn't go through many tires at all. At the track either. It was they had just resurfaced it, I think it was, and it didn't eat hardly any tires at the track. So a lot of guys were able to get a bunch of laps in and a bunch of tires. So that was kind of a cool side.
Yeah, note. It was really cool the way they did that. So, I mean, imagine you're at an event and you see a couple people practicing the layout, and you're like, "Oh, dude, what the hell? Why are they getting practice time?" But I like how they covered that. They wanted to practice a little bit to make sure everything was safe, but they didn't want to give an advantage to anyone. So after they were done doing the practicing, and they were like, all right, is everybody done? This is safe? And they got the green light. They said, yeah. At that point, that's when they resealed it. So then this way, everybody would have the same surface. Nobody has practice time on the surface, and it kind of evened it out again. I don't know if that was planned, but I thought that was really cool that they did that, and they waited till everybody was done, and they got the green light, and whoever practiced was done practicing, I'm assuming for layout purposes. And again, they kind of reset the equalizer again by resealing everything, so the transitions between concrete and the new pavement wasn't going to be that different. I'm assuming that's what they were trying to do. So little things like that I paid attention to, that I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, they even thought about doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, tons of positives to this event. Just obviously a little minor changes that I think could help out this event drastically. But, I mean, honestly, it's just super cool to see what they're doing. And, I'll be at round 2. I'm going to be at as many rounds as possible, filming for guys at the rounds. And I enjoyed filming. I really appreciate what they're doing as well. The whole organization. The guy that is running it, I don't know the guy's name, but he was really cool when he was talking about it and how he really wants to make it for the drivers, and he was really adamant about that. And he was just a really cool guy as well. I got to talk to him a little bit, and so I was pretty pleased overall with the event, and it's definitely something if you're in the era, if you have a basic car and want to do any kind of competition drifting and want to drive with the highest level drivers possible and competitively do it to where it's not going to break the bank. I mean, this is like the event you go to, period.
Yeah. And I think it's a new stepping stone now. I think, before we had grassroots, and then it was like one Pro-Am, and then there was Pro. There was no Pro 2. And then we had Pro 2. And I think the evolution of drifting has kind of blended itself where maybe this needs to be that stepping stone before Pro-Am. Because when I go judge the U.S. Drift shootouts or the MDU shootouts, those layouts are drastically different than what I saw here. But if you take, let's say, the Klutch Kickers is around for 5 years, and you take a seasoned Klutch Kicker driver, and then you put him into the Pro-Am settings, I think because of that seat time and that practice that he got with timing and understanding that whole technical part, and then you introduce him into, now he's done that stepping stone. He took that step and he learned that. And then he jumps into Pro-Am. I think he's going to be better adequated and better equipped and have more experience to go into Pro-Am and drive substantially better, because in my opinion, from what I see, is there's a lot of Pro-Am cars, but there isn't a lot of Pro-Am drivers, if you know what I mean. There's a lack of knowledge. There's a lack of setup. Some people are setting up their cars maybe incorrectly. And I feel like if they have the practice to go to events like this, where it forces you to have to do these suspension settings to your car, it's going to broaden your education. So then when you do make it to that level of Pro-Am, you're going to have that knowledge, and that's probably going to play a role in how you're going to do in that Pro-Am series in your search to ultimately get your FD license, and then use that same process in Pro 2 and then ultimately in Pro 1.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's a really cool, and there's a bunch of street leagues that are starting back up and stuff, and I'm excited for that stuff too. But again, that's a little different because you see a bunch of like LS swap 240s nowadays, and you can't take that to a street league comp. I don't think they'll allow you. I think it's got to be, isn't it? Am I correct? And it's got to be like a chassis specific engine and whatnot.
Yeah. I think they all kind of stay with that. And,
Yes.
Chassis specific ones, and I think that's definitely going to. I think that has a role in it as well too. I think there's a lot of guys that have cars that are set up for that. More and more people are starting to kind of set up their cars that fit that demographic. And I think with the growth of that, you're going to have more street league events. I think ultimately what's happening is that what we're seeing in drifting in America, and I'm assuming around the world, is drifting is growing at an alarming rate. I think it's maybe growing faster than a lot of us had thought. And because there's an evolution of drifting, you're going to see different avenues of drifting forming. The United States is like literally 50 times bigger than Japan. So we're going to have different styles, different perspective, different ways of doing things. And I don't think
even
that means
different
that
parts of the country are going to
wrong or
have different ideas on how to do
Yeah.
things too.
Exactly. Everybody's going to have their own way of doing things, Like, for a quick example, the way people play basketball on the West Coast isn't the way they play basketball on the East Coast, And just a very, very small way of explaining that. And I think that's good. Drifting in America has gotten to the point where, you go to Chicago for a certain thing, you go down south for a certain thing, you go to east for a certain thing, west for a certain thing, and at the end of the day, it's all drifting. It's just dressed up a little bit different, and everybody has a different flavor. And at the end of the day, I don't see how that's a bad thing at all.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, big thumbs up for me for the event, and I assume same thing from you. So I'm really curious to see how these next couple events go, and I think it'd be fun going forward to do just a little bit more deep dive into the actual comp next time for the next rounds, just talking about specific runs and stuff. And I think that'll be really cool to kind of dissect some battles and stuff, and kind of even help people out in the driving aspect. So,
Absolutely. I definitely want to see more drivers show up. Like Miles, like I don't know if you've talked to Sebastian, but I would have loved to see Sebastian at this event. I think he would have done amazing. I don't know if it's his cup of tea, but there's nothing in the rulebook says that he can't be there. And I think it'd be cool to see him there, or people like him there, like yourself. I mean, having you there, it's a different type of driver. And then having Sebastian there, that's a different demographic as well, too. And I think the mixture of that is what's really going to be the magic of all of this. You know what I mean? I'd really want to see more of those guys throwing down. It would just be a real treat, if anything.
Yeah, and I think we all want to come to the ones that we can make it to. I know he is building a new car right now for this style of stuff. Like he's building a car for competitive drifting. And it'll be exciting to see him make it out there and see how he does.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
Sick.
Cool, guys. Well, you got any last final thoughts on this event at all? I mean, I think we hit the nail on the head pretty good.
Miles is coming.
I know.
Miles, I'm going to keep on bugging him. I'm going to keep on bugging him.
I'm going to come.
I think he's
I'm trying.
I think he's just scared.
Who?
You know.
That's what I'm scared.
Yeah.
That's what I got a couple good friends I called up immediately after the event. I'm like, so you're gonna come, right? And they're like, I'm like, come on, you should just come. Let's work it out. Let's make it happen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Dude.
Yeah, I definitely want to make it to the next one if I can. I'm gonna try and see how final bout goes and how my money is looking. And if there's a spot, I'm gonna try and be there.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
But if I'm not that, then I'm definitely gonna plan my April around that, making that event happen, because I think as far as getting ready for FD and stuff, that's the kind of stuff I need to be driving. You know, even if I don't go out there, it's for the money. I think just for the experience and for the seat time will be worth it. Especially if you guys are saying you get good, it's good on tires and stuff like that. Like, that's definitely where I want to be, what I want to be doing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Cool.
Oh, well, I hope I get to see you down there for sure, man. For sure.
Awesome, guys. Well, again, thanks for coming on and talking to me about it. Again, Reese, Marin, you want to give a quick shout out to what you do?
So I do drift instruction lessons all around the United States. If I'm in the Pacific Northwest, I'm usually instructing over at the School of Drift with Chelsea and Travis Reeder. If I'm in Pennsylvania, I'm usually doing things privately at a racetrack that I've set up. Or if you go to Club Loose, I'm usually instructing over there. Anyway, but if you want to see if I'm doing any instructions or clinics or anything like that, you can just get me at Reese Marin on IG, at Reese Marin, and you'll just send me a DM just like everybody else. I actually got one this weekend. I got 3 guys that are showing up, so I'm going to teach them the ropes a little bit and keep on spreading that knowledge.
Awesome.
Because somebody's got to, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. There you go. Just give yourself a quick plug there, Dustin.
Yeah, just check me out on social. Dustin Miles or D_Miles_GMP, Miles of Style Racing.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching the podcast. We'll see you next time. Peace.